Hello and welcome to another video episode about dissonant chords in the Schillinger Diatonic Harmony System. This tutorial presents an overview of the set of videos on the 7th, 9th and 11th chord. I will summarize the essentials and you will see two new example chord progressions in synthesizer music and jazz big band idiom. As always, what I'm trying to prove here is that the Schillinger system is not just an academic exercise, but that it enables you to create real music with predictable qualities. Let's introduce the subject and context. The Schillinger system of musical composition presents techniques for writing music using a mathematical and scientific approach. Learning the system, you don't have to wait for the divine spark. Instead, you may use a deterministic approach as a starting point for your own creativity. The notation and symbols may be a stumbling block when studying this system. Therefore, I created two videos that explain the basic nomenclature. In this tutorial, there will be frequent references to other videos on my channel. The Schillinger system is a set of books in 2 volumes. The special theory of harmony discusses traditional and tonal harmony, with chords in thirds. The diatonic harmony system is a subclass, where chord structure and root movement are based on 7-pitch diatonic scales. Alternatives to the diatonic system are symmetric harmony, diatonic symmetric harmony and hybrid harmony. On my channel you will find these subjects covered in other episodes. In diatonic harmony, the dissonant 7th, 9th and 11th chords need careful treatment. These chapters from the book discuss the chord structure and position, and preparation and resolution of the dissonant chordal functions, as well as the creation of chord progressions. Let's start with chord structure and position. I will use a set of diagrams that illustrate the essential aspects. We use the symbol S for chord structure, with a number that indicates the chord tension level. On the right we see the S5, the triad. The others are dissonant chords in diatonic harmony. The chord structure consists of chordal functions. For diatonic harmony and chords in thirds, these are the root, 5th, 7th, 9th and 11th. The highest chordal function determines the chord tension and is used in the chord labeling. When the chordal function 1, the root, is in the lowest part, the chord structure is in root position. The triad S5 has 2 inversions, the 6th chord and the 6/4 chord. The 7th chord has 3 inversions, as indicated by the labels in the diagram. Let's demonstrate these aspects in staff notation and audio. We start with the triad S5. We write 4-part chords, so for S5 we must double one chordal function. Let's listen to the C major triad in root and inverted position. There are 4 triad types: major, minor, augmented and diminished. In the S7 there is a single dissonant chordal function, the 7, which requires careful handling and voice leading. Here are the root position and 3 inversions of an F major 7th chord. This dissonant chord type is discussed in detail in a separate video tutorial. The S9 has a fixed chord structure and position. The 4 chordal functions are root, 3rd, 7 and 9. The 5th is omitted. We may use this chord in root position only. It has a specific, easily recognizable sound. Both dissonants 7 and 9 form the interval of a consonant third, which is relevant for preparation and resolution, as we will see later. The S11 also has fixed structure and position. It is a triad over a root, a diatonic 7th below. The structure contains the functions 1, 7, 9 and 11. The example here has the flavor of a dominant 9 sus4 chord. The triple dissonant handling also is discussed in detail in a recent video tutorial. The next aspect is preparation and resolution of the dissonant functions. An overview is shown in this diagram. We see the 4 chord types and chordal functions. Dissonant function voice leading uses 3 approaches shown by symbols on the right. Suspensions, which is held over notes, or stepwise descending or ascending motion. For each dissonant chord, the dissonant chordal functions are listed in the center of a box. The S7 has the single dissonant chordal function 7, the S9 has double dissonants 7 and 9, while the S11 has triple dissonants that form a triad. Resolution of dissonant chordal functions implies descending stepwise motion to either a consonant chordal function 1, 3 or 5, or descending into a lower dissonant chordal function. For example, in the S9, the 7 and 9 may descend into 3 possible pairs of notes, either the 1 and 3, the 3 and 5, or the 5 and 7. I will demonstrate the resolution approach for the S7, where the dissonant 7 from the A minor 7 descends into the 3 of the next chord D minor. For the other options and chord types, once again I refer to the dedicated tutorials. The alternative voice leading approaches come into play for the preparation of dissonant chordal functions. We start from either consonant functions 1, 3 and 5 or a lower dissonant, and then use either suspended notes or stepwise motion. There are specifics for the S9 and S11. In the S9, the consonant third formed by 7 and 9 requires parallel preparation motion, so the 2 parts are either suspended or move in parallel in the same direction. On the other hand, for S11, we may see either parallel motion, but also combinations of approaches, such as a combination of suspensions, steps and even leaps, as I've demonstrated in extenso in the separate video on the S11. Let's listen to one example, the suspension 5 to 7, as we move from the C major triad into the A minor 7 chord. We'll proceed with chord progressions and root cycle movement involving dissonant chords. When connecting chords in a progression, we obtain a series of chords with certain characteristics, as depicted in this diagram. Resolution implies moving to a lower tension chord structure, in the direction from S11 to S5, and indicated by the feed-forward arrows in the diagram. Preparation means going in the opposite direction, from lower tension S5 to higher tension chords, as indicated by the outer loop feedback arrows. We may freely connect a series of either triads or 7th chords, as shown by the inner feedback loops. However, we may not connect multiple S9 or S11. In diatonic harmony, there must be single occurrence chords that resolve into a lower tension structure. I'll demonstrate this aspect in cadences and progressions later in this video. The final aspect is root movement in chord progressions. In diatonic harmony, we obtain good voice leading and a stable sense of harmony when the root moves down by thirds towards the tonic degree. So this means the root moves down by a third, fifth or 7th, indicated by the positive root cycle symbols R3, R5 and R7. A destabilizing effect with often poor voice leading is achieved when moving in the opposite direction, with upward root movement in thirds, away from the tonic degree, and indicated here by the negative root cycle symbols. The neutral case is R0, where we remain on the same root, but either the chord tension or position changes. In the case of dissonance handling in diatonic harmony, the stepwise descending resolution of the dissonant chordal function yields a positive root cycle, as shown in the lower left of the diagram. For example, we may move from an S7 to a lower tension S5 by moving the root by either R3, R5 or R7. 3 options. I'll demonstrate this, starting with R3, the root moving a third below, from an A minor 7th chord to the F major triad or 7th chord, in root position or inversion. The dissonant 7 becomes the root of the next chord. Next is the positive root cycle R5, from A minor 7 to D minor, with the 7 becoming the third. The third option is R7, equivalent to the diatonic ascending step, here from A minor 7 to B flat major, with the 7 going to the 5. Now listen to the S9, going to either a triad or an S7 chord, for positive root cycles R5 and R7. Finally, I demonstrate the triple dissonant resolution for S11, again involving positive root cycles. For preparations, it's a different story. We may prepare dissonant chordal functions with either positive or negative root cycles. Using suspended notes implies a positive root cycle. This is the smoothest possible preparation approach. Listen to the 3 options for suspension preparation of the pitch G, the dissonant 7 and A minor 7. I write cadences that include the resolution and indicate the arrow path in the diagram, while showing the pattern in a text box at the bottom. This specifies the chord structure types, the root movement and the note movement towards the dissonant. And here's the double suspension when preparing the double dissonance in S9. And finally, the triple suspension preparation of S11. The previous examples involved positive root cycles and smooth voice leading, yielding a strong cadential feeling. Things get different when using dissonant function preparation by stepwise descending or ascending approach. The first example demonstrates the preparation of G, the 7 in A minor 7, by stepwise descending or ascending motion. Both involve negative root cycles, R-3 and R-7 respectively. And now the same process for the double dissonance preparation in the D minor 9 chord. Note the parallel descending steps in consonant sixths or thirds. And finally, for the triple dissonant preparation in S11. The second example demonstrates delayed resolution, where first the highest tension function 11 resolves, later followed by the other pair 7 and 9. I also wanted to show one combined preparation approach for the S11. In general, descending preparation is preferred over the ascending step. You'll find many more examples and options discussed in the 4 separate video tutorials. Let's move on to the 2 new examples of slightly longer chord progressions. The first example focuses on a set of lower tension chords. It's a diatonic progression in G major, with a brief sidestep to the Mixolydian mode. I started by designing a progression, written as a chord structure series and a root cycle series, and shown above and below the staff. This progression was carefully constructed to demonstrate the various approaches and their consequences. Only then did I write the 4-part voice leading shown here. The 18 measures chord progression contains 6 dissonant structures, 4 as 7 and 2 as 9 chords. It also is characterized by a disproportional number of negative root cycles. Let's zoom in on this progression. The dissonant chords are marked with boxes, as are the preparation approaches. Here suspensions and ascending steps. Arrows show the descending stepwise resolution into lower functions. Also, I've marked the many negative and therefore destabilizing root cycles. And some voice leading aspects are highlighted, such as the swapping of neighboring chordal functions for improved voice leading, and the acceptable leap into the bass part for an inverted chord. The same aspects are marked for the final 6 measures, that contain one more dissonant chord, ascending stepwise preparation, proper resolution, and another series of negative root cycles, before closing with a dominant tonic cadence. Here's the chord progression played as sustained notes. Based on this progression, I created synthesizer and EDM texture. It's a short, medium tempo piece with a 16th note groove. We hear pulsating synthesizers, sustained pads, and a number of portamento glide, filter and modulation effects. The original progression is split into 3 phrases. One special characteristic is the Euclidean rhythm pattern in the hi-hat. In other video tutorials I've shown the generating mechanism for these types of rhythm. Here's the annotated condensed score with audio. In the second example, the focus is on high-tension dissonant chord structures in diatonic harmony. Again, I first wrote the chord structure and root cycle series on a piece of paper before determining the voice leading in a 4-part setting. Now the progression is in various minor modes that will also determine the voice leading. In this 18-chord progression there is only one triad S5, there are 10 7th chords and 7 higher tension chords. This high density of extended chords complicates the voice leading. Again, we zoom in on this progression. This time I only marked the triad. Note the single occurrences of S9 and S11 and the series of consecutive 7th chords. Preparation mechanisms and descending stepwise resolution are indicated, as are the occurrences of negative root cycles. The voice leading is partly dictated by dissonance handling and in part by the local minor mode leading tones. A typical example is the sustained or raised 7th degree B natural in measure 1 that should ascend to the tonic C. And here we see a weak spot in the progression, with parts moving in the wrong direction. I could not find a better voice leading without changing the initial design of the chord progression. The latter part of the example has a number of consecutive 7th chords. Preparations, resolutions and root cycles are highlighted. Note that this example does not close with a strong cadence. And here's the audio rendering of this chord progression. Given the high number of 7th and 9th chords, I decided on a very short jazz idiom piece that is based on the given progression. This is a medium swing waltz for a big band with 4 saxophones and 6 brass. The upper 3-part layer was used for assigning parts to brass and saxophones. The trombones play the trumpet block chords at the lower octave, with one brief exception where they move to open position voicing. The same parts are copied to upper saxophones in the middle register, while the baritone saxophone is doubling the acoustic bass. The result is an acceptable but suboptimal jazz big band setting. This is most noticeable in the trombone section. Normally, in a tutti setting, these would play the essential chordal functions 3 and 7, with more higher functions assigned to the trumpets, achieving a more balanced and stronger sound. This aspect is discussed in my ebook on arranging. However, let's listen to the result of this simpler approach that uses diatonic harmony in a jazz context. As we've seen, the use of higher tension dissonant chords in diatonic harmony yields certain limitations, implied by chord structure, voice leading and root movement requirements. Here I will list various extensions and alternatives to the strict diatonic harmony techniques. For writing chord progressions with unlimited series of S9, S11 and even S13 chords, the hybrid harmony technique offers a solution. The same holds for symmetric harmony, with equal division of the chord roots over the octave. This type of harmony system was discussed for triads in a separate video, but you may also find it included in other harmony tutorials on this channel. As a side step, watch the tutorial on the extended and generalized use of the passing seventh in series of seventh chords. And finally, releasing the requirement of chords in the thirds and the traditional 4-part setting, we may turn to the Schillinger general theory of harmony and strata harmony techniques. This was touched upon pragmatically in a number of videos, but a more fundamental discussion is left for future episodes. In summary, this overview is a compilation of the essential characteristics from the other video tutorials on dissonant chords in diatonic harmony. In the overview, I demonstrated such aspects as chord structure and position, plus dissonance preparation and resolution. But the episode also presented 2 new example chord progressions and realistic instrumental settings. For more details, I refer to the separate video tutorials on either S7, S9 or S11. And at the end, I mentioned a number of alternatives and extensions for writing more complex harmony. I hope this episode succeeded in bringing together a number of separate tutorials and adds to your understanding of the use of dissonant chords in diatonic harmony. Please subscribe to my channel, share and like these videos, support my efforts, and see my website for more content. Thanks for watching.